The world did not ease into this scandal. It erupted like a grenade tossed into a crowded square. Screens everywhere pulsed with the name of Emily Carter, a singer once celebrated as the nation's voice of hope. Headlines screamed betrayal, hashtags slashed across feeds, and every swipe revealed another layer of outrage. Emily stared at her phone in disbelief as comments ripped her apart with merciless speed. She whispered, "How can one old diary page erase everything I ever gave?" The internet did not answer with reason, but with fire, feeding on shock and anger. Friends avoided her calls, producers erased her from lineups, and strangers spat her name with venom. The chaos felt unreal, like watching her own funeral while still breathing. Every second was louder, faster, crueler, and the mob was already chanting her downfall. Emily Carter, the adored star, had become the day's public enemy, her life burning live on millions of screens. The morning brought no relief. Instead, it sharpened the edges of humiliation. Television anchors dissected Emily's every word, playing old clips of her singing as though mocking her former glory. She sat frozen at her kitchen table, staring at the screen while commentators twisted her diary entry into a weapon. A voice on the broadcast said, "Emily Carter, once a beacon of hope, now stands accused of hypocrisy." She whispered, "I was a child when I wrote that. Why does no one care?" The smell of burnt coffee filled the air, forgotten on the stove, but she couldn't move. Outside, her neighbors lingered at mailboxes, whispering with phones in hand. The world was louder now, not kinder. Every breath felt like another headline breaking. The morning light did not heal. It revealed her downfall in cruel detail. Her phone rang again, but she didn't answer. It was her manager's name glowing on the screen. A man who once called her his brightest star. Now he wanted distance, not dialogue. Emily whispered, "Don't leave me too," but let it ring out. The silence was heavier than shouting, heavier than threats. She thought of stages she had filled, of lights that once crowned her with glory, now extinguished. In their place were cold screens dripping poison into her life. She scrolled through old videos, watching her younger self smile, radiant, untouched by malice. Contrast was unbearable. She whispered, "Where did she go?" Her reflection in the black screen didn't answer. It only reminded her that the world had already chosen its villain. Down the hall, framed photos hung crookedly where she once celebrated victories. One showed her at 20, smiling in glittering dress after winning a music award. Now, the same photo felt like mockery, a ghost of someone she could never be again. She touched the frame with shaking fingers, whispering, "Did I really deserve this?" The answer was buried in silence, smothered by noise outside. A car passed with the radio blasting. Her name spat like venom between pop tracks. She shut her eyes, pressing her forehead against the glass. The glitter of her past was nothing but shards now, cutting deeper the more she remembered. The storm outside was relentless. Rain pelted the windows, as though the sky itself judged her. Emily sat curled on the couch, knees drawn to chest, listening to the thunder echoing her turmoil. She whispered, "It's all gone, isn't it?" The city's glow flickered through rain-streaked glass, distorted and blurred. Somewhere outside, chants rose faintly, protesters gathering with signs. She pressed her hands to her ears, but the sound still seeped in, relentless and cruel. Every crack of thunder felt like another accusation, another betrayal. She was no longer Emily Carter the singer, the dreamer. She was Emily Carter, the warning. The storm of judgment had left Emily hollow, but memory pulled her back to gentler days. She sat at her piano, the keys dusty but familiar, recalling when music was her sanctuary, not her weapon. A decade ago, her song stitched broken hearts together, each lyric a thread of hope. Emily whispered, "They once believed in me," her fingers pressing a hesitant chord. The sound trembled, frail like her voice. She remembered crowded theaters where strangers sang her words louder than she could. Those voices once lifted her, now they screamed against her. She whispered, "I am still her," but doubt coiled tighter. For every note, she saw the mob's venomous faces. Music no longer shielded her. It exposed her raw wounds. In her silence, the echo of her old self played on, haunting but fragile. The memory unfurled of her first concert. Emily stood behind the curtain, heart racing, the crowd chanting her name with pure devotion. She was only 20 then, wearing a simple blue dress, voice trembling before it soared. She whispered into the mic, "This is for anyone who's ever felt invisible." The audience erupted, a wave of love so strong it nearly carried her away. That night she believed she could change the world with song. Now she wondered if that same world would erase her with equal passion. The flashback was too bright, too sweet. It cut against the present like glass against skin. Emily whispered, "How can the same love turn into this hate?" The silence of her apartment swallowed the memory whole. At the kitchen counter, Emily held a mug of untouched tea, staring at the steam fading into cold air. She remembered her mother's words years ago. "Your gift is not just a voice, it's a light." But her mother was gone now, taken by illness before she saw the downfall. Emily whispered, "Would you still see me as light, or just the shadow?" The silence pressed heavy, like an answer she feared. Once her songs were prayers for strangers, now they were ammunition. She traced the rim of the mug with trembling fingers, a ritual of distraction. The loneliness in that kitchen weighed more than the mob's noise. She thought, maybe love was always temporary, maybe belief was always conditional. She retreated to her bedroom, pulling out a shoebox from under the bed. Inside were handwritten letters from fans, faded ink but full of love. One read, "You saved me when no one else could." Another, "Your songs made me believe again." Emily held them like fragile relics, each word an echo of faith she once carried. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Where are you now?" She knew the fans' voices were still out there, but they were drowned by anger, louder than gratitude. The box felt like both comfort and betrayal, proof of what she had given and what she had lost. Tears stained the paper as she pressed the letters to her chest. The weight was unbearable, yet impossible to release. By evening, the city outside glowed with restless life, while Emily sat on her balcony staring at the horizon. She remembered singing at a charity event, children holding candles as her voice soared. That was when she truly believed she was more than just a singer. She was a vessel of hope. Tonight the candles were gone, replaced by the glow of screens mocking her name. She whispered, "They will never let me be that again." The night air chilled her skin, but she stayed seated, watching shadows swallow the skyline. For a moment, she wondered if redemption was a fantasy, a story told to ease the broken. She pulled her knees close, eyes fixed on the darkness, searching for the girl she once was, and finding only fragments. The first official blow came with a cold email from her record label. The subject line read, "Termination of contract, clinical and final." Emily whispered, "After 10 years, this is how it ends." She scrolled through lines of corporate language that cut deeper than any insult. "Brand reputation must be protected," they wrote, as though she were nothing but risk, not art. Her phone buzzed with notifications, sponsors posting statements, partnerships dissolving with each refresh. She watched her livelihood collapse in real time. The silence after each ping was worse than the sound itself, like a door slamming shut. She pressed her forehead against the desk, muttering, "I gave them everything." But the world was already moving on, her name reduced to liability. Her phone vibrated again, but this time it wasn't contracts, it was silence from friends. Group chats once alive with laughter had gone dark. She scrolled through names she thought unshakable, only to find nothing but gray bubbles and unread messages. One friend had posted publicly, "I can't support what she did," a dagger disguised as righteousness. Emily whispered, "You could have called me." Her reflection in the phone's glass stared back, hollow and tired. Betrayal wasn't loud, it was quiet, it was absence where loyalty should be. Every friend who vanished left another crack in her chest. She realized the mob had won more than her reputation, it had stolen her people too. The storm reached her family's doorstep. Emily's younger brother called, voice tense, his words sharp with shame. "You're destroying us," he said, his tone trembling between anger and fear. She whispered, "I never meant to hurt you," but the silence on the other end was worse than accusation. She pictured him avoiding neighbors, ducking their questions, hiding his last name. Family dinners, once warm and safe, now felt like battlegrounds of silence and blame. Emily clutched the phone tighter, begging, "Please don't turn away too." But she knew even blood could retreat when fire grew too hot. Her family was no longer shield. They were another fracture, another betrayal. Then came the diary. A scanned page from her teenage years spread like wildfire online. The handwriting was hers, the words clumsy and unfiltered. The mistakes of a girl who never thought the world would see. She whispered, "That wasn't me. It was a child." But screenshots traveled faster than truth. Commentators tore apart every line, dragging her into trials she never consented to. Old friends resurfaced, confirming stories without hesitation, feeding the storm. Emily felt stripped bare, her past weaponized against her. What had once been private growth became public destruction. She pressed the diary against her chest, sobbing, "Why are they punishing me for surviving my youth?" The spiral deepened with every headline. New accusations sprouted overnight, some real, most fabricated, all believed. Anonymous accounts shared stories, each more damning than the last. Emily whispered, "They don't even need proof anymore." Her phone became a battlefield, every scroll another wound. She thought of deleting it, disappearing, but the mob would still find her. Outside, cameras flashed from cars parked near her home, vultures waiting for breakdowns. She closed the curtains, whispering, "Leave me alone." But the world had no mercy for silence. The storm was endless. Every rumor another stone thrown, each one sharper than the last. Emily's shaking hand scrolled through her feed when she saw a post exposing the origin of the leak. The diary page hadn't surfaced by accident. It was traced back to someone she once called friend. David, her former bandmate, had shared it with a journalist. Emily whispered, "Why you, David?" Her memories of late-night rehearsals and whispered dreams now felt like knives. Betrayal didn't just sting, it hollowed her chest. She whispered, "You knew my secrets and you sold them." The world saw only scandal, but she saw the face of trust broken. Betrayal was no longer abstract. It wore his name, his smile, his voice, twisted by envy. The truth spread quickly. David, the man who once called her sister, had long envied her spotlight. He had tried to launch his own career but faded into obscurity. Now he resurfaced, not with music but with betrayal. Emily whispered, "You wanted my stage, didn't you?" His interviews painted him as a victim of her ambition, twisting every memory into accusation. The mob believed him, hungry for a villain and too blind to question his motives. She watched clips of his smug smile as he said, "The world deserves to know who she really is." Emily slammed her fist against the table, muttering, "You're not revealing truth, you're rewriting it." Behind David's betrayal lurked another shadow, Vanessa, her manager's assistant, who quietly whispered rumors to media outlets. Vanessa smiled in public, sending texts of support, but in secret she fed the fire. Emily discovered a forwarded message. Vanessa had leaked rehearsal recordings out of context. Emily whispered, "All this time you sat beside me, smiling while sharpening knives." The realization clawed at her. Her fall wasn't fate, it was engineered. The enablers didn't wear masks. They were friendly faces, waiting for her weakest moment. Emily sat frozen, muttering, "How many were waiting to climb over my body?" Among the noise, a quieter voice emerged. Daniel, a forgotten stagehand from her early tours, reached out privately. He had seen David arguing with reporters weeks before the scandal broke. He had overheard Vanessa boasting about influence. Emily whispered, "You knew, and you stayed silent." Daniel replied in his message, "I feared no one would believe me." His words cracked the wall of lies hinting at truth. Yet Emily knew the mob would dismiss him as irrelevant. The outsider's voice was fragile, but vital. She whispered, "You might be the only one who can save me." The question lingered, would he speak loudly enough, or would his truth drown in chaos? For the first time since the storm began, Emily saw the edges of the trap. Her downfall wasn't born from a teenage diary alone. It was fueled by envy, ambition, and betrayal from within her circle. She whispered, "They built this fire and threw me in." The mob's hatred had been real, but the foundation was lies, twisted truths designed for destruction. She closed her eyes, gripping the letters from her fans tighter. Doubt seeped into her anger. She muttered, "If they knew the truth, would they forgive me, or destroy me anyway?" The twist wasn't salvation. It was the cruel knowledge that her ruin was orchestrated, and yet the world might never care. Emily could no longer hide. She stepped into the blinding lights of a press conference, her hair tied back, face pale but fierce. Microphones jutted toward her like weapons. She whispered under her breath, "I have to face them." Reporters shouted questions, each one sharper than the last. One voice asked, "Did you betray your fans?" Another, "What about David's claims?" Emily raised her chin, trembling but steady. She said, "I was wrong to trust the wrong people, but I was not the monster you've been told." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. The cameras flashed like lightning, immortalizing her defiance and fear in equal measure. For the first time, she wasn't running. David stood in the crowd, smirking as though savoring her collapse. Emily's gaze locked onto him, rage and grief colliding. "Why?" she shouted, voice cracking. But microphones caught every syllable. The room hushed, reporters leaning closer. David shrugged casually, his silence more cruel than words. Emily's hands trembled on the podium, her chest rising and falling like a storm. She whispered, "You were my brother," but the microphones amplified her pain for the world. Murmurs spread. This wasn't scandal. It was betrayal bleeding in real time. For the first time, cracks formed in the mob's certainty. Her strength faltered. Tears spilled as she gripped the podium, words catching in her throat. "You don't know what it's like to be hunted by lies," she cried. Her voice cracked, raw and human. The mob that once cheered her downfall now watched her break, apart under the weight of it all. A reporter whispered audibly, "She looks destroyed." Emily shook her head, wiping tears with trembling fingers. "I am not destroyed," she gasped, though her body betrayed her with shudders. The cameras loved every second. Her pain was content, a breakdown spectacle. Yet in her collapse, a flicker of truth burned brighter. Suddenly, Emily straightened, shoulders square, voice steadier. "You can twist my past, but you cannot erase who I am." The crowd stilled, cameras silent for a breath. She locked eyes with David and Vanessa, defiance hardened in her face. "If you wanted me broken, you should have finished the job," she said, voice sharp as steel. Reporters gasped, pens scratching furiously. For the first time, she wasn't the hunted. She was standing, unbowed in front of them all. The mob had demanded her silence, but she gave them fire instead. Her words didn't erase the damage, but they carved space for resistance. The hall erupted in chaos, reporters shouting, flashes exploding, voices colliding into frenzy. Emily stood at the center, breathing hard, heart pounding like drums of war. She whispered to herself, "This is my cliff." Every eye watched, every word recorded, every tear immortalized. In that storm, she felt strangely calm. Whether she rose or fell no longer mattered. What mattered was that she had spoken her truth. Her breakdown had become her weapon, her defiance her shield. She turned from the podium, walking into the sea of cameras, each flash striking like lightning. For better or worse, the climax had arrived. There was no turning back. The press conference had ended, but the echoes lingered like smoke after fire. Emily returned home to find silence louder than applause, her body heavy, her mind frayed. She whispered, "What happens now?" Her apartment, once a sanctuary, felt like a cage. Outside, cameras still lingered, their lenses hungry for any trace of weakness. She drew the curtains tightly, but she could not shut out the shadows pressing against the glass. The online world roared on, debates flooding timelines. Some mocking her, others questioning if she had been framed. For the first time, cracks appeared in the mob's certainty, but the relief was faint, fleeting. Emily slumped onto her couch, gripping the fan letters she had clung to in darker moments. She whispered, "Will they ever see me again? Not the monster, but me." The question drifted into the still air, unanswered. The next morning brought whispers of something unexpected. Her loyal defender, Sarah, a 31-year-old journalist who had once interviewed Emily with admiration, had published an article titled "The Truth Behind the Firestorm." Emily scrolled through every word with trembling hands. Sarah's piece questioned David's motives, exposed Vanessa's manipulations, and presented Daniel's testimony with clarity. For the first time, the narrative shifted. "Someone believes me," Emily whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. Yet even as hope flickered, fear loomed, truth was fragile, and the mob unforgiving. Online debates sparked like wildfire, some cheering her resilience, others doubling down on hate. Emily pressed her palm to her chest, whispering, "At least I am not alone anymore." It was not redemption, but it was a voice fighting beside hers. But the silence of family weighed heavier than strangers' hatred. Emily's phone buzzed with her brother's name. For a moment she hesitated, then answered. His voice was quiet, brittle. "You've put us through hell," he said, but softer than before. She whispered, "I never wanted this, not for me, not for you." He sighed, words heavy with conflict. "I don't know if I can forgive you yet." Emily swallowed her pain, answering, "I'll wait for the day you can." The call ended without resolution, but his willingness to speak pierced through the fog of isolation. She sat still, the phone trembling in her palm, whispering, "Even silence is softer than hate." Family wounds cut deep, but maybe they could scar instead of bleed. That evening a message arrived from Daniel, the outsider truth holder. He wrote, "I will speak publicly. They need to hear the whole story." Emily stared at the words, heart pounding. She whispered, "Are you sure? They'll come for you too." His reply was swift. "The truth matters more than their anger." For a long moment, Emily pressed her forehead against the cool glass of her window, watching the city flicker below. The mob's power was vast, but so was courage, even if fragile. She whispered, "Maybe your voice will be the one they can't ignore." Her eyes welled as relief and dread clashed within her. The possibility of truth shining through the storm was terrifying, but it was hope nonetheless. By midnight, Emily stood on her balcony. The city sprawled before her, neon lights flickering like restless stars. She whispered, "Maybe this isn't an ending, it's something else." The air was cold, but her chest felt lighter than it had in weeks. She thought of Sarah's article, Daniel's courage, even her brother's fragile call. Pieces of her humanity were still intact, not erased by the mob. The scars would remain, yes, but scars meant survival. She whispered, "I can live with scars." Her eyes closed as she inhaled the night, the sounds of distant traffic weaving with her heartbeat. Redemption was uncertain, forgiveness fragile, but survival was enough for now. The resolution wasn't triumph or tragedy. It was endurance. The world had shifted, but not in Emily's favor. News feeds still screamed her name, though now mixed with hesitation, some voices asking if she had been wrong. Yet the hashtags of hate continued to trend, a reminder that the mob never truly stops feeding. Emily sat on her couch, scrolling through the chaos, her reflection caught in the black glass of her phone. She whispered, "They still want my blood." Outside, neighbors walked past her building, their eyes flicking upward as though expecting to glimpse the fallen star. For every article that questioned her guilt, 3 more mocked her pain. Emily exhaled slowly, pressing her hand against her chest. "Maybe this is forever," she muttered. Her story wasn't forgotten, it was carved into digital stone. The weight was crushing, but there was no undoing it now. Across the city, David reveled in his moment. He appeared on talk shows, smiling with the confidence of someone who had traded loyalty for spotlight. The truth had to come out, he told hosts, but his eyes gleamed with hunger. Emily watched clips of his interviews, her jaw clenched tight. She whispered, "You'll live off my ashes." The audience applauded him, the enabler's lies woven into his script. For a moment, Emily felt her rage eclipse her despair, but the anger quickly turned into exhaustion. She realized his victory was temporary, a hollow flame that would one day burn out. Still, the sting of betrayal cut deeper knowing he wore her fall like a crown. She whispered, "You can keep your stage, it's built on ruins." Meanwhile, Vanessa thrived in shadows. Her role in the scandal never made headlines, her hands clean in the eyes of the public. She had climbed higher within the industry, whispers of her influence growing louder. Emily learned from a stray article that Vanessa had been promoted. She whispered bitterly, "You fed the wolves, and they rewarded you." It was not rage that filled her this time, but resignation. Emily realized that some people rise not through truth, but through ruin. Watching Vanessa's quiet success felt like swallowing glass. "Still," Emily said softly, "I will not chase what you stole." She knew chasing justice might break her more than the scandal had. Survival, not vengeance, was the path she chose. Sarah, the loyal defender, paid a heavy price for standing beside Emily. Her inbox flooded with threats, her reputation questioned, her career stalled. Yet she did not waver. Emily read her texts late at night. "I believe in you. They will see the truth, even if it's too late." Emily whispered, "You're braver than me." The defender's loyalty was not glamorous. It was costly, painful, relentless. Still, it was proof that someone still cared. In a world eager to abandon, Sarah's voice was the thread that kept Emily from unraveling completely. Emily pressed her forehead against her phone, whispering, "Thank you." Gratitude mingled with guilt, but it was real. One ally remained when the world had turned away, and that was enough to hold on to. On the final night, Emily stood on her balcony once more, city lights sprawling endlessly below her. She whispered, "The world will never forget, but neither will I." Her story was no longer about glory or downfall. It was about survival carved into scars. The mob had branded her. David had betrayed her. Vanessa had climbed on her fall. Sarah had defended her, and Daniel had spoken truth. The storm had consumed everything, yet she remained standing in its wake. She closed her eyes, inhaling the night, exhaling years of weight. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, almost like a vow, Emily whispered, "You will not erase me." It was not a scream, not a plea, just a knife of truth, soft but unforgettable. The final blow was not theirs. It was hers.